Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to Gaia Daily for March 27th, 28th, 2020. How are you doing? Well, it just continues to get more and more strange out there in our outer manifested world, calling us in deep within to our spiritual truth. Very, very important time for these souls, these lightworker souls. And just a reminder that there are so many, more at one time than ever before, of these advanced souls on the planet. And as much as you may feel isolated and alone in your spiritual beliefs and your spiritual truth right now, this current situation in our world is giving us an opportunity to reach out beyond the isolation, the limitations, the quarantine, spiritual quarantine we've been in for so long, and feel the energy of support and connection with so many other souls, waking up, giving themselves permission finally to come into their spiritual truth, what we're here to do. And that's a really important energy coming forward right now. We talked yesterday about loyalty contracts and feelings like you're here to bring people along. And that's kind of the message coming through today. It's like, no, that's Piscean age energies, programming, distortions in the Christ mythology. And you are not here to be a savior. You're here for your full expression. And that's part of the energy that's coming forward right now as we're being pushed over the edge, taking that leap into the new frequencies that are available for us. You know, they've been out there and we've been kind of squeezed and pushed and going through so much and having to put so much effort into trying to even get a glimpse of these new energies, these ascension energies. It's like, yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if I believe you, right? You know, and talking, these spiritual teachers talking about this new energy coming in. It's like, yeah, you guys have been saying that since 2008, 2012, the 90s. You know, it's like, no, it's actually happening right now. And the lower grid is being dismantled. And there's incredible ascension energies coming in. And what's coming forward right now, because the moon is now in Taurus, and that means it's gone over Uranus, it's going to be going over Venus today. And it's really activating this and moving Venus into its trine with Jupiter and Pluto. Very harmonious energies, but all about our self-worth and our worthiness for who we really are. And can we receive? So it's kind of like the message right now seems to be about that, what moving into the new age means for us souls, and maybe for the rest of the collective of humanity, but definitely these souls right now, because you're here to lead the way. That means there's no one, leading the way means you don't know what you're doing. I mean, you do, right? And it's now, this is this time where we're uncovering these jewels, we're uncovering these gifts, these skills, this knowledge that we have gained over many lifetimes and evolutions. We've gone through spiritual ascension before. We know it's all going to be okay, despite the programming and messages of fear blooming in our collective consciousness. And is it the fear? Is this fear of disease that's coming up actually fear of these new energies, and fear of getting out of the pen, fear of getting out of the cage, fear of getting out of the lower matrix control, because we've been there for so long and it makes us feel safe. And at this point, it's like, what I feel in these soul groups is like momentary glimpses of this higher vibrational frequency and allowing that in their field. And then all of a sudden, complete and utter frustration, feelings of failure, those responsibility contracts of like, we are being given this huge opportunity right now to wake up. And still humanity doesn't seem to want to take it. Humanity wants to stay as sheep. And it's like, well, what do you do, right? And these souls are feeling very frustrated because it feels like, okay, you've been coming back again and again into this earth evolution, trying to bring your light, trying to bring your healing, and then only being received with rejection and persecution and all of this. And it's like, okay, this is like these souls being like, humanity, you want it or you not? Because we got to go on and do another project, right? Like, it's like, Are you going to camp on this shit? And it's interesting because I've been seeing this pattern very strongly over these past years in relationships with these light worker souls. It's almost like a metaphorical energy where you're in a control-based relationship. You don't see it because it's hidden, it's covert. It's like kind of this narcissism type energy where those relationships, there is a soul bond, but it's really about control and keeping you from your soul purpose, keeping you from your destiny path, keeping you from the truth of who you really are. And then when you wake up to that, because this is the reason why it's so intense and so hard to get out of those relationships, is because it's a pattern over lifetimes. And again, it's those karmic bonds, trauma bonds, and karmic contracts with beings that aren't as evolved as you. They don't want to operate in a pure karmic place of like not creating more karma. They're not there, and you're like trying to be a good person, trying to bring love to the situation, understanding, healing, and that's just not where they're at. They want control. They want to feed on you, and that's exactly this like a metaphorical representation of these control energies that have this grip of the lower matrix on this planet, keeping us. So in those relationships, what happens is that if those people, those karmic relationships and those trauma bonds, like if they really supported you and who you were, then you'd be empowered more, and you'd see who you were, and you would leave them and you wouldn't be available as food anymore. Right? And so they've got to disempower you. They've got to keep you down, constantly. And the worst is when it's done with love, like fake love. And it's like love bombing and then devaluation. And it's really hard to see through those patterns, especially if this has been what I've been seeing. Those people who have been dealing with this, they've been dealing with this over lifetimes. And so it's like all they know is control-based relationships. And then you think that's love. Now, when you wake up out of that situation, you're like, what? Here I am bringing my love, my trust, my purity of soul, my healing, and you're camping on that shit and no more, right? Because it's like they're keeping you occupied and distracted from your purpose and from the truth of who you are, and then it's like, and at the same time, feeding on your energy, and it's like camping on the light. And that's exactly what this is coming up for these souls right now, feeling like, humanity, are you going to receive us? Are we going to move into new energies? Are we going to have a spiritual awakening? Or do we need to get on and move on? And this is kind of a place, I think this has to do with Mars is back in the game. We thought Mars was moving on, but, Mars is now getting ready to move into Aquarius. And that means we're starting to feel a conjunction with Saturn. So the Mars energy, the ruler of Aries, it's our masculine, it's our warrior self. And it's a very important energy that's happening to Mars as Mars, has just coming out of that Jupiter-Pluto conjunction. And it's a divine masculine activation. And these particular souls, these light worker souls, like that's what they need, is like a backbone, stand up for themselves and say no, right? Like compassion, it's great to be compassionate and this healer soul, and you want to give and love and all that, but you cannot have true compassion without self-compassion. And it's time for us to tend to our sacred spiritual gifts and hold them precious and protect them, honor them. And that's the divine masculine, standing up for what's right and good and true, saying no and putting a boundary, and being able to act from your spiritual will. So Mars coming into this conjunction with Saturn. So Mars, had this energy, conjunction with Jupiter and Pluto, but hasn't come, now it's coming into its conjunction with Saturn. And Saturn is like the manifest world, the laws and rules, the father, in a way, a father God type energy. And so the divine masculine kind of energy moving in, Mars is empowered. And it's like, no bullshit. We've had enough of this stuff, and if this isn't going to change, like say in your dysfunctional relationship, it's like, at some point you recognize, oh, I don't think it's really possible. Like, you have a vision of a healthy, somehow you see through the fog of this programming over lifetimes of domination and control that's kept you as a light worker from your truth. And you're like, oh, that's not optimal. Right? And you see that picture of the clarity of how this relationship isn't serving you on any level, right? And then you are like, no more, right? And this is kind of how these light workers are feeling, like watching this whole experience bloom on the planet right now. And yet, are the people receiving this awakening? Like, how far do we need to go down the trauma train? Like, aren't we done with this? And there are actually a lot of souls and a lot of beautiful things happening right now, but we're in a very strange time, suspended between realities, waiting for something to occur, feeling totally out of control and totally no clue of what's going on, and completely frustrated around, what am I doing here? And why can't you guys receive what I have? Why can't this world support me in my gifts? And just this feeling of like, get me. And it's interesting though, because this feeling is really about feelings from the past and past lives where it was like not being received and being rejected as the light that you are. And so really that's what this is about. It's like a blooming of stuff from the past to cleanse out, but it's kind of like, humanity, are you going to get it this time? Like, how? Because we can't go down into the depths of the trauma with you anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. We've had enough, like, if you guys want to stay sheep and controlled, fine. We need to go create another reality. But that's actually what Earth is doing. And those souls that don't want to go, they're going to go to a different energy. The Earth is going to 5D. And so we're going with her. And that's why we're here. We're leading the way. But we've got to watch where we want to save. And understand that your karmic responsibility at this point in time is one thing, and that's your full expression of who you are as a spiritual being in this reality. And it's not about saving other souls. And it's like allowing them to have their trauma and their pain, and allowing you and saying no more, right? So this is this very interesting energy. We're starting to feel Mars today, tomorrow, coming into this conjunction with Saturn. And it's like Mars is still a little bit into the conjunction, it's just the tail end of the conjunction with Pluto. So again, Mars is kind of like bridging back these planets of Saturn and Pluto, going back to January. What is this really about? What are we doing here? And so that Mars moves into Aquarius on Monday, and that's when it's an exact conjunction with Saturn at 0 degrees there. And so it's kind of like we're coming to this different place in this experience, because Monday is also the day that Mercury makes it back to 12 degrees and comes out of its retrograde shadow. That's where it turned retrograde, was 12 degrees Pisces. And so Mercury out of shadow, Mars makes its epic, like, warrior, like, we're going to the Aquarian age. I don't give a crap if you're coming or not, right? Like, we're done here. We've spent so long in this trauma stories, and to watch humanity stay in the pen when they're being given the gate, the golden ticket, the key to the garden. And these are people you thought were enlightened that are around you, and they're choosing to stay in follow the rules and control and fear. And, there's way bigger story going on than we can really comprehend, but these are the feelings that are coming up. And I think it's a powerful energy of like this Mars activation really landing home, super activating those powerful souls with Saturn and Aquarius getting ready for their Saturn return or their second Saturn return. It's kind of like, game on, you guys. Like, come on, you got to land here on Earth. We need you. And embody that light and stop messing around, And so it's like this Mars activation is very powerful, and that's Monday. So that's going to be a shift into a new energy when Mercury comes out of shadow, because it's about coming out from the fog of this Mercury retrograde, right? It started back in February. And then And leading up to that this weekend, what we're going to be feeling is Saturday, Venus in trine to Jupiter, Sunday, Venus in trine to Pluto. And the moon today kind of moving those kind of urging, it's like the moon is coming and the moon and Venus are saying, okay, it's time for us to receive these new energies. So everything about this new age and where we're heading has to do with whether we can receive it. So that's for us light workers. Can we receive these higher vibrations? Can we get out of the trauma stories? Can we get out of the savior model and allow ourselves to go? That's the simple key to this right now, is about, can you feel worthy enough to receive this ascension energies? Because Saturday also the North Node moves to 2 degrees. So we're getting to the end of the North Node in Cancer, South Node in Capricorn. And so that South Node in Capricorn, what's holding us back from the past, the chains of authority, And so that's where we're at. Mars moving into Aquarius. And it's like breaking through the lower matrix. And of course, we feel it lessening. We know if you really tap in and you go within and you go away without, around and about this story that's playing out in our manifest world, you can feel this spiritual shift that's happening. And yet it's like, humanity, are you going to choose it? And then I think there's this divine timeline trying to land. We've been talking about that. But then maybe there's also a split of souls that just aren't ready. And they need to still work out their trauma and their control, like giving their power over to a force that's, like these control energies, they're not quite done with that story. We got to let them have that, And so that is this energy on Saturday, and then Venus, trine Jupiter, Pluto. Now, Jupiter on Sunday, Jupiter and Pluto come into their exact conjunction. And that's the beginning of this next little chapter. That goes to the 6th of April. And so we'll just stay in touch through this whole energy here with daily updates, so that we can be present with these energies and we can do what we can do to receive. We can connect with each other and bring our light together finally. And that means feeling good, feeling connected, feeling loved and held by the universe, because Venus and Taurus right now in this trine to Jupiter, Pluto. So the bigger planets that make their move, it's like, ooh, that's really intense, right? But we don't feel them until the personal planets come into interaction. And that's where Mars was like, bam, like, let's move this ship along. Who cares if it has to wreck? Break it, because it's wrong. This reality is not fit who we are as spiritual beings, and it's got to break down, right? And now Venus is coming into a sweet little trine. It's like harmonious. It's okay. So the side of the ship is broken, but the seas can calm, and we can, make our way slowly but surely. And so that's kind of this energy of this weekend, and it's like this. It feels like this great pause, like. Okay, and for you lightworker souls, it's really important to receive, to understand and take hold of this. Like, the only thing that's holding you back right now from taking the leap completely into that full expression of who you are as a spiritual being, and allowing these energies to come into your field and be in the higher vibrational frequencies, they're right there. They're so available more than ever before. It's not an effort. It's not breaking through and spending hours meditating and doing all the things you need to do to try to get a little semblance of higher vibrational frequency. It's not that anymore. It's right there. So now you need to adjust to whether or not the Venus and Taurus you deserve, and North Node finishing up in Cancer, to receive. Do you deserve to receive? And that's a ridiculous question, really, because we exist. We have I am consciousness. We are God consciousness first before anything else. And all these stories that are playing out are a manifestation within the consciousness. And so it's really silly. But since we've been beaten down lifetime after lifetime and rejected and believed that we deserved control energies rather than love and all that. We've got some radical shift happening. That's at Uranus and Taurus. And the radical shift is, do you deserve? And it's like, oh, that's a silly question. And then once you let that light in a little bit more, for a little bit more time, maybe it's 5 minutes first, it's like, oh, really, can I do this? And it's like we find ourselves, going back to that place of asking for permission. But we what we have to do right now is kind of be like, oh, humanity wants to stay in the pen. I've put a foot outside of the pen. I know that's my destiny. I know that's what I'm here for. And then all the energies come up around, is it okay? Do I deserve it? Like, am I safe out there without this control? And it's like, but we've got to make that leap in order to be caught by these energies. And living in these higher frequency energies is like feeling held in the universe, feeling guided, and this is part of what's coming in with these divine timelines, trying to mix with other timelines and whatever's happening there. There's this energy of what appears, so this is something that happens, we can all relate to, where you have something happen and it seems really bad, right? And then maybe years down the road, 10 years later, you're like, that might have been good because of these reasons, right? But this is shortening right now. Our consciousness, we're going through some weird portal or I don't know, we just don't know what's happening. But these are getting closer together where it's like what's wrong is right and you see it right away. And can you be in that vibration? Where it's like, especially around this manifested disaster that's going on right now, which is largely a psyop and fake. More people died from H1N1 and we didn't shut any countries down. And, but it's like, there's this energy of like things that happen in your life. It's like, oh, this is not what I wanted. This is wrong. This is bad, right? And then boom, later in the day or the next day or a few days later, it's like, oh, that's right. I can see that's right now. And trusting that you're held and loved and buoyant instead of dragging your physical body around in these lower frequency vibrations that we've been staying in out of loyalty, out of responsibility, feeling like that's what we were here to do. And it's like, oh no, we're here to go back to the garden and play and co-create together. And it's like, let's get the F on with it. That's what Mars moving into Aquarius is bringing. Mars is like, let's play. Mars is that child self. And, Aquarius is quirky, individual, higher vibrational frequency, like let your freak flag fly, and it's like, this is what we're called to do. This is, I've seen this again and again in charts, astrology charts recently, where it's like, yeah, you could complete your karma this lifetime. Like you did want to do that, but and then you could, come back to earth as a more of in service and not so much out of karma, right? Have a body if you want, have a body if you want. And that's an interesting goal, but you're not done here until you come into your full expression of who you are creatively, expressing all of these gifts you've accumulated all of these lifetimes, and you haven't been able to get anywhere close to full expression for a very long time, typically a couple ancient lifetimes where you were. And since then, you're beaten down, hunted down, programmed and controlled. And it's like, that's what you came here for. So that's our whole like reorientation right now. Keep your eye on the prize. And then it's like that silly little voice that says, yeah, but is it okay? And do you deserve it? Are you good enough? It's like, oh my God, enough of that, right? And that's this like Mars moving out of Capricorn, like, oh, enough of those old stories of control. Like I am a sovereign spiritual being on my spiritual path and nothing is going to stand in the way of my full expression because that's why I'm here, and let's get on with it. So powerful shifts and changes happening. And it does feel like the process we're in right now with these timelines, it's like they're being plucked, and these strings of timelines, and they're old and dusty. Maybe the divine timeline, it's always been here, but we've been so far away from it because of the trauma stories that we've been going through for 100,000 years, and it's like now these strings are being plucked. And that's causing like this dust to come up that's like confusing everything. And it's not clear like whether you're jumping timelines or they're converging, or you've been on the wrong one or you've been on the right one. And that's where we're in this weird place of like moving to higher dimensional frequencies. It's like where that thing that's wrong all of a sudden is right, and it's guidance, and you're held, and the disease is the cure, and that everything is oneness, moving us out of duality consciousness. That's what's trying to happen. And then we have to have that shift around the Venus and Taurus. Do we deserve to be here on Earth? To land, to have what we need to thrive, and can we receive that North Node in Taurus, the love, the cosmic love of the universe? It's been there all along, but we have been content to be contained in the lower matrix, in this lower grid, because we were scared of our potential and thought that we were here to sacrifice and be the savior, And it's like, no, we're here to fully embody the light and express that. And in the past, that's been like, oh, no, we don't want you here. What are you doing? You're the disease. That's the problem. The light is the problem because it's lighting up the dark shadows and the lies and the control energies, and the people don't want that. No, what are you doing? That's bad, right? And it's like, this is where we go, it may, it's like, actually there's the oneness principle, this oneness, Christ consciousness, new energy we're trying to move into. There's no positive or negative. I mean, it's all positive. It's all one. It's like what holds everything, and then the play of events within. And it's about us individually giving ourselves permission to move into that oneness consciousness where the solution and the problem and the solution come together. And that even though you might be in the problem, the solution's there. And your vibration's in the solution. And you're playing along at life, held, floating, playing, coming back to the garden as a child of the universe with thy will, the bigger truth of God consciousness and the Christ consciousness working through you. And you're playing along and having fun, getting out of this responsibility that's somehow up to you as one little human to save the world. And that's maybe that's part of this frustration that people are feeling, like, humanity, do you want my healing or not? I was like, oh, the healing's for me. Like, this energy's for me. Like, I'm the one who can actually operate this machinery. And you've been waiting around for people to approve and give you permission and be comfortable with your higher vibrational frequency. And Mars says, like, push it, just crash down the gate, right? Because Mars is the ruler of Aries and Chiron and Black Moon Lilith. So yesterday the sun went over Chiron. Today the sun going over Black Moon Lilith. And so it's like like we talked about, when the personal planets interact with these other players, that's when we really feel it. And the sun in Aries and Mars moving into Aquarius, it's like, be your quirky self. You have permission. What else are you going to do? Right? We're at the end of the road. You can either be who you really are in your true big spiritual light, or what, right? And Black Moon Lilith is its deepest, darkest, shadowy secret hidden, that effect of that persecution over lifetimes, the shame, also the deep, dark, hidden secrets in our society that need to be revealed. And the sun is like who we think we are. And in Aries, it's like, going over Chiron and Black Moon Lilith, it's like these deep wounds over not being able to be who you really are on the earth, to the point where you're like, get me out of here. Except for, again, we have to fully arrive and not just complete our karma, but fully express our spiritual truth in order to get on to the garden and back to the play and the co-creation that we're here to do together. And we've been waiting so long, and it's finally time. So keep your eye on the prize and hang in there. There's so much coming up from past lives right now. So it's like being in that new energy and allowing that, and allowing yourself to enjoy that. And then, there's also going back and forth with the stuff from the past that's coming up, and frustration and the pain around who you pretended to be, and where you denied your true self. And so it's like it's a powerful energy. At the same time, we're just suspended in this weird place of like something big's trying to happen. But again, we're just waiting around for it, feeling powerless in the situation. And yet we do have the power, and we're moving the consciousness as one by one we feel like come back into deserving and allowing ourselves to receive. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.